So, is there anything that you can't find there that you should definitely pack? Like, what can you think of that, whether it's food or clothes or just any items that you, when you were there, thought, I wish I had this?
I appreciated having candles a lot. A lot of times the drains or uh, they call them jewies. They're like open sewer sort of or open drains would have sewage in them a lot of times, and they would just maybe be right outside your window or just down the street, and they would start drying up, and the dust would fly up during like a dust storm or during just normal day, and so it didn't always smell great. And the people there don't always have, I mean, ways to shower as often as they do here in Singapore at all, or things like that. So that kind of living thing was different, and having some nice smelling scents and even just something to light when electricity went out was helpful. So I use candles more there than I probably ever have anywhere else. So that was nice to have, and they don't sell as many candles there, and if you can find them, sometimes they can be really expensive. So that would be nice. A lot of the clothes that I brought, as you can get clothes there, but again, as soon as they see you're white, you're gonna try and charge you more. Then maybe the prices might be there, and otherwise they'll say no, you can't have it. So bringing my own like warmer clothes was nice. Kind of mementos from home, so I could remember places. Food, if it was things like chips or things that would stay in a dry climate and would not go bad, then I would bring those. I brought some of those things, some like drink mixes and things like that, just to have some at home, in case I didn't want to go out and get food, or if I didn't like what they were having for dinner or lunch in the cafeteria area. So those are the ones that come off the top of my head. Otherwise, a lot of the stuff you can get there, just sometimes slightly more expensive. Or sometimes they would be fallen off the truck items that were going to the army people when they were there. And those would be a lot cheaper than you'd find in the States because they didn't know how much they actually cost. So it could vary. Depends.
Interesting.
Depends on what kind of supplies they're importing at the time. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So earlier you were talking about those special gifts and maybe like a bit of corruption. Like, how safe did you feel there? How safe did you feel with the people around, and then just with the volatile situation of that part of the world?
Being such an unstable and war-torn nation, the people are very resilient, and a lot of the families and people that I met wanted it to end. They wanted it to be done. They didn't want to have to deal with more death and more corruption and more fear in their communities and just in their lives in general. So it was there was a good mix of feelings, I would say. And personally, I I believe that if I die, I know I know what's going to happen to me, and I know where I'll be, and it'd be a better place than being here where there is like corruption and destruction and death and fear and things like that. So I personally didn't feel intensely scared or super nervous. There was one time where a bomb explosion went off just a couple blocks away from our compound, and it was, even with all the walls and everything, it was enough that some of the dust from outside in the playground blew up into the bottom of my window, the cracks under my window, and I thought they were there on the compound there to get all the teachers or people there. It was a weekend right before right when we had finished our spring break, the day before we were supposed to start school again after spring break. And I was really nervous. I grabbed my phone and things and ran down to the safe room. I was in my kindergarten building in the kindergarten building by myself. So I locked myself down into the safe rooms. My roommates were able to call me and make sure I was okay and everything, but none of us knew what was happening at the time. And that was probably the most scared that I felt. But even then, I was able to calm down knowing that no matter what happened, I knew that I would be okay. And the hardest part of that whole experience was knowing that there are a lot of people out there in the city and in the whole country who must be so terrified like that, without a safe room to go to all the time, and without a security guard outside taking care of the whole compound and making sure they're safe, and without a hope of knowing what's going to happen to them. If they died, if they would get caught or tortured or anything like that, what would happen? And that helped me think and pray for the country a lot more than ever before. And I was able to calm down knowing that I had hope. And so that was probably the most intense or nervous or scared that I felt. And so I would say that's not too bad. I did notice that a lot of the teachers there who had been there for several years, that every explosion or every shooting sound that they heard off in the distance, whether it was military gunfire just for practice or whatever, it started to get to them more and more. And so over time, the emotions can wear down of feeling safe and secure. And our security manager was, just the second year I was there was a lot more open and relaxed, and came to dinner and talked with us more, because he had lightened his load of responsibilities in taking care of all the maintenance workers and everything. The positions changed a little bit, so that all he had to do was to deal with security stuff. So that freed him up a lot, and that helped me feel safer knowing that he was there and talking to me, and he knew more of who I was, rather than the first year where we didn't see him very much, and he was just completely overwhelmed with all the security intel that he was taking in and having to shuffle through every day. So, yeah.
So it just got to the point where it just wasn't safe anymore for you guys to be there, and the school closed down and it's not open yet.
Right. They had to close down indefinitely, mostly because of some security issues that came up that they hadn't realized before, or that had just come to light, and things were getting more intense with the new president being elected, and he had studied abroad and gotten a degree in business, and then come back to Afghanistan and tried to help lead the country into a better existence. The Taliban, from what I understood, are going against, we're trying to undermine the authority of one person who's educated outside and have these Western influence, bringing that back into Afghanistan and taking them away from Muslim law, like Sharia law, and just different Muslim laws like in the Quran. So with them trying to undermine that, they also tried to undermine any organization or Western affiliation that was in the city. And the pressure for international schools specifically heightened greatly around that time. So with all of those things going on, they honestly, one of the biggest problems was that we couldn't afford to go anywhere else in the city, because the rent had been jacked up so much. We were paying a lot, but we couldn't afford to go anywhere else that had enough security to keep the kids safe at school and the teachers safe while they lived there. We were hoping that some other new land would work out, but that didn't go as smoothly as we were hoping it would, and things kept getting waylaid and pushed off and delayed, and without that new land and that new safer environment, that we didn't have to pay exponential amounts of money for just basic rent, it became a lot more stressful and difficult to maintain. So.
All right, well, let's shift a little bit to things that you would do for fun. What did you do for fun while you were there?
On the compound, we had a lot of fun. We to go outside of the compound, there was a bowling alley in the city, so we actually were able to go there. And it was local, so we had to keep covered the whole time, but we were able to order food and try and do some bowling, all covered up, so that was interesting. Being able to go out and eat was one of the most things we could do for fun, and we were only able to go to places that were pre-approved by our security manager. So that was actually really fun, though, because I really enjoy food, so that worked out well for me. On the compound, we would play sports. There was an area that was kind of a little dusty field that didn't really have any grass, but we play soccer, ultimate frisbee, set up a volleyball net, play volleyball together, and sometimes the guards would come join us, or sometimes we had our security manager come over with his right-hand man, and that was fun to be able to play that. For people's birthdays, we would watch a movie, and bring some food over to one person's building or house. There were some couples and who had kind of their own building who could invite people over for game nights, things like that. And we even played capture the flag at night, wearing all black. Had to tell the security guards to just kind of stand down a little bit, like on the compound. So, but that was really fun. We'd crumple up pieces of paper, tape them together, and throw them at each other. That was really fun.
Cool. Okay, so earlier you were talking about traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Is Kabul a good travel hub, or do you have to really go to Dubai and then travel?
We pretty much have to go to Dubai. There are some airlines that do fly directly out of Afghanistan, and trying to buy flights on them with American credit cards will shut your card down for a little bit, and you have to call and clarify, yes, I actually made this purchase to Afghanistan. Really? So that was a little funny at first. But those national airlines do fly to several different places, and they're opening up to flying more places, which is great. And so was helpful to be able to fly directly out of Kabul sometimes, but mostly we had to go through Dubai. So it added a little extra fee onto our traveling. So.
Okay. All right. Well, to sum things up, can you give us a couple pros and cons of living in Afghanistan?
Pros, I really liked the food. If you like bread, it's a great place to go. They also have rice, and they make really good chicken. A lot of their food is kind of oil-based, though, so someone with maybe a gluten allergy could maybe have rice, or a celiac sickness could have rice and things like that. And if you had to stay away from oil, it might be a little bit difficult, but I really appreciated the food. That was a pro for me. I really appreciated the dry, cooler weather and being able to see the mountains. In Kabul specifically, you can see the Himalayan mountains, and I loved that, or the Hindu Kush. And that was incredible. The weather I really appreciated, despite the dust in the air. It was really nice. Having a really tight community, that a lot of the expats there were very tight and had good community with each other and could depend on each other because they had the similar struggles of things that they would miss or things that they didn't realize were socially inappropriate, or just kind of discovering and learning alongside each other. Made a very tight community, and even getting to know a lot of the locals and nationals was a really big blessing because they're so hospitable and so generous, and a lot of them are very, very kind. So those are pros, definitely. Cons would, of course, be the security. That's been an issue. It continues to be an issue, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's a con. Traveling to there can be difficult. Getting the visa was very easy for the school that I was a part of, but getting just a traveling or visiting visa now is a lot more difficult, so that can be a challenge. And being white and not knowing a lot of the local lay of the land can be a con, definitely. To be swindled or taken advantage of, and monetarily, financially, in different ways like that, could easily happen. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to travel there too. Not as many tourist sites to visit. Mostly go to visit the people, I guess. So.
Okay, great. Well, Andrea, thanks so much for telling us about Afghanistan today.
Thanks for having me.